Good morning, CLC. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this service this morning. I invite you now to just take a few deep breaths. Put your day and your week aside. Anything that's going on, just let it go for now. Take another nice, deep breath. And as you release this breath, allow all stress and tension just to leave your body. In this moment, at this time, allow your body to relax and allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words, I surrender.
I surrender.
Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. In visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, in seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words, I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude and saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot the music for that one.
Happy 4th of July weekend. Thank you for spending your holiday Sunday with us when you could be lying comfortably on the floor of an airport somewhere. Beverly Hills Lectures was mentioned as in this book study that's coming up, and actually the talks in July, with the possible exception of Reverend Arthur's, but he could do this too, will be drawn somewhat anyway from that book and those talks. And you know, until maybe the 1960s, when you wrote a nonfiction self-help kind of book, it was written in a very formal sort of way. It was heavily edited, you know, and prepared for publication. And so if you wanted to really get the goods on something, you had to hang out with the author kind of backstage. And that's what Beverly Hills Lectures and Seminar Lectures, several other, Anatomy of Healing Prayer, Ideas of Power, Philosophy of Ernest Holmes, some of these other books that are collections of Ernest Holmes' class teachings, where he was informal and off the cuff and free associating. It's fascinating. I mean, it doesn't diverge in subject matter. It's not like you say, okay, well, that stuff I wrote, don't pay any attention to that. You know, here's how it really is. But the anecdotes and the asides and the personal sharing, personal stories that he has, fascinating stuff. So the Beverly Hills Lectures, I think it was 1953. Tomorrow is Stephen Foster's birthday. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, July 4th. Tomorrow is an important anniversary in my life, the 4th of July. Tomorrow I will have been a religious scientist for 46 years. I was 20, but who's counting? And they had a picnic. I went to this place for the second or third time. There's a whole backstory here, but anyway, they had a picnic, and I came home from the picnic with a membership card, a science to my textbook, and a kitten. And the kitten lived a long, happy cat-like life, and I still have the textbook and the membership card. So I welcome you here today for what we're doing, which today is not really, I look back and all the years, 4th of July and different Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and I talk about America, and I talk about the American promise, the American ideal. And I'm not talking about that today, but something jumped up that I thought was really more on point and critical for people to hear right now, which is get some rest. Get some rest. It's halftime in the year, you see. We just started the second half of the year. In team sports, you have halftime, or in hockey, you have 2 intermissions because they're constantly moving. And in a play, they take a break. In a boxing match, every round ends with a bell. In music, you have rests, do you not? And the rests lend weight to the notes when they pick back up. in delivery of a talk, you have timing. If I stood here and just rattled stuff off without taking a breath, well, I'd be done in about 8.5 minutes, which actually the first talk I ever gave, I did just that because I read it. And I had my head down and I read it like this and and I finished it, I don't know, very little time. And nobody remembered it but me, you know. And in comedy, and in drama, in theater. It's all about timing. And the timing involves a rest, what they sometimes call a pregnant pause, you know, a moment where wait for it, here it is. You deliver the line. Life is waiting for you to deliver your next line. It's waiting for you to deliver the truth of your own being. But you got to be ready. And we're coached by the culture and by New Thought and by the whole human potential movement to prepare ourselves primarily on one level, which is action. If you're sitting there, which you happen to be right now, and those of you at home, if you're sitting there, you should be doing something, right? How long did you come to a place like this to hear a talk like this, still under the impression from childhood that you needed to be here, that you had to do this? This was one more errand. This was one more task. Because a lot of us in Western culture are raised that way. Well, it's Sunday in the Christian model, and you need to be in church. And it doesn't matter if you get anything out of it. It doesn't matter if you're better off for it in material ways in the short term. Your eternal soul depends on it. And it took a while for me, and probably for you too, to realize I'm here because I choose to be here, and I'm here even if I don't listen. I had people, well, when we used to be upstairs in the other building, there's floor-to-ceiling windows in Catherine Hall, and they used to overlook forest. Now they overlook subdivision across the street. You know, it used to be woods, and there'd be animals running around, and there'd be birds flying. And I'd be giving a talk up there, and the room was configured kind of in a strange shape, but I'd be giving a talk from the corner, basically, like over here. And this whole group of people here be looking out the window. And you can get your feelings hurt about that if you're a speaker. It's like, hello, your immortal soul depends on this. But they were getting what they came for. And I don't know that they weren't listening, but they were getting what they came for either way. You and I have been told that we have to look busy because the boss might walk by. You and I have been told, ever since you were a little kid, mama or somebody said, don't dawdle. Isn't that a wonderful word? Don't dawdle. Are you dawdling? Don't dawdle. Get up, get busy, get dressed, be ready early, because we got to do this and this and that. Now do your homework. Now go to bed. Now, and when we sleep, it's not rest a lot of times. I was just reading a couple of articles about this week, about one of the great unspoken needs in American culture today is people don't get enough sleep. Because they lie there in bed processing, thinking about what all has been and what all is yet to come, and strategizing and planning, and finally they give up and they get up, you know? And they go sit at their desk, or they get on their phone, scroll through the news, because their minds are just so active all the time. In this teaching, we value the power of mind, the power of a made-up mind, the power of a managed mind, you know? Thought plus feeling equals belief. Belief is creative. But part of the management of mind is telling it to be still and know. So, I want to share with you that rest is a spiritual practice on a par with all the other spiritual practices you might know. It's on a par with prayer treatment. Prayer treatment is stunning, something few of us knew about before we found a teaching like this one. That prayer is a science, that prayer isn't just this happenstance thing that we send off God knows where and something may come of it. You know, prayer is using a definite principle along certain lines toward a specific outcome. Well, that's great. And we learned about meditation. And it's astonishing to people when they learn of meditation in a new thought setting and then later realize that there's a rich Western tradition, not to mention an Eastern tradition, of meditation stretching back millennia, long before the current crop or the 20th century crop of self-help writers and so on. So we know about these spiritual practices. Fasting is another one. Do you fast? We're not real big on fasting in New Thought. You don't hear a lot about it, you know. But it's a nice practice. So is feasting, for that matter. They go in balance. Michael Beckwith wrote a book on this. The 40-day soul fast, mind fast soul feast, I believe was the book. What are some other spiritual practices? Compassionate action is a spiritual practice. When we give out food like we're going to do on the last Saturday I think in August in Tamina, that's a spiritual practice. Okay? Journaling is another one. Yoga is another one. And you have your own favorites. And you have a conglomeration of spiritual practices that you pull together from all these different traditions. But in between all of them, insert like a carrot as you would a type, you know, just wedge into there doing nothing. Just rest. Not resting to meditate, not resting to commune with the infinite, not resting to clarify your goals or make the list of what to do next week or any of the lot of that, but just rest now and then. Just rest. And if a nagging voice comes up in your mind and says, you're running out of time, because one day you're going to die and you won't be here anymore, so you can't afford to rest. Turn and face that voice and have a conversation with it and say, first of all, I hear your fear, but look at all the time I've wasted not resting. Look at all the time I've wasted worrying. If you really want to set up a ledger of time not well spent, you won't find rest on it. Anger's on it, resentment's on it, regrets on it, a lot of things are on it, but not rest. So tell the little voice, what I'm doing right now is good for me. If you eat all the time and you never digest your food, that's not a good thing, right? You got to stop and pause and let things work their way through. If you were panting constantly and your breathing would not be a good thing for your metabolism. Just as you complete drawing in breath, you release it, but at that moment, going from inhaling to exhaling, there's a pause there. And all I'm suggesting is expand that pause, widen that window somewhat into rest. So it's a holiday weekend. And I'm reading about the holiday weekend, and besides all of the news and the serious stuff, there's all this like how to barbecue ribs better and, you know, games to play with the family when they come over. And I'm thinking, just like at Christmas, which is often when I think of this, we make ourselves crazy trying to entertain ourselves and entertain the world to have this be the best holiday ever. Compared to what? If you have a day off tomorrow, take it. If you don't have a day off, if you're sitting there squirming and you're thinking, well, he's telling me to rest, but I can't rest because I've got commitments. I get that. So do I. Well, file this away. There'll come a moment when you don't. There'll come a break. You always get one. All I'm saying is take it. Rather than guilting yourself over it and getting busy doing something pointless and repetitive. Just to look busy. Take it. God rested. It's what the Bible says. You want to go with the Bible? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, right? We kind of cherry pick out of it. But it says, 6 days God created the heavens and the earth and rested upon the seventh day. God rested. It doesn't say God reviewed the work. God went over with the contractors with the hard hats on, went over all of the, how are we coming with this? No, rested. And elsewhere it says that what we're to do on that seventh day when we rest is to adore God, is to adore the great Creator, which is a beautiful idea. I want to take it a step further and say we adore the great Creator by being so satisfied with its creation, so comfortable in its creation, really, that we can just rest, that we can just relax, because we're tense. We're tense right now. Some of us were talking about this beforehand. Many of us have been talking about it like nonstop, but except for the appropriate pause here and there. But we're tense right now in the culture. A conversation can occur between two people. I've sort of seen this happen, but a conversation can occur between two people where one of them says, this country is going to hell in a handbasket. I've never understood that expression, but this country is going to hell in a handbasket, you know. They say this to another person. The other person, oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And the first person says, yeah, because of blah, 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 blah. And the second person is horrified and says, well, I'm in favor of that. I think it's going to hell in a handbasket because of yada, 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 yada. And the other person says, oh, you must be crazy. And off to the races we go. Off to the races we go. We need a break from all of this. We need to dial it down. We need to breathe and be calm. Remember something that Ernest Holmes, no less, wrote, where he says there are but two fundamental principles in nature. One is the unity of the whole. The next is the variety, the diversity, the manifest expressions of that unity. Any system of thought, religious, political, economic, that contradicts either one or both of those is as certain to fail as that tomorrow is as certain to follow today. This means that freedom, liberty, is not license. In other words, there's one life, that life is spirit. That's half of the story. The other half of the story is that life, being spirit, is now let loose into creation to be diverse. What does diversity mean? Would you like a lecture on diversity? Diversity means a wide expression, as far as the eye can see, of ways of being in the world in every possible sense that you can think of that. And the first creation is not over. It's continuing through every new expression of itself. In other words, every idea that anybody has, any way of being that somebody can come up with, every invention, discovery, everything, is extending Spirit's knowledge of itself within its own infinity, a more particularized understanding of itself. And where this is especially meaningful is that you are one of those points by which Spirit is knowing more of itself. Everything you do, everything you perceive, you're taking in information on behalf of the creative source, which, yes, is infinite and already contains everything, but has not yet had the experience you're about to have by means of you. And so it benefits from that. It catalogs that kind of, you know? And it expands in its own self-awareness. This is really what we're doing here. And this is what he goes into in that book, is that we're not just here, we're not here to pay bills. You know, we're not here to accumulate stuff. We're not even here to be popular and liked. Those are all valid things, and they can happen along the way. But what we're really here to do is to express as Spirit and intake information as Spirit. And when you intake information and redistribute that information out in a very even-handed way, you know another name for that? unconditional love. Giving and receiving unconditional love. See, if I started with unconditional love, it sounds a little icky and ooey and stuff, and I don't know if I can do that. But when it's just about be you, be you. Behold all things as much as possible without judgment of a moral condemnation sort of tone, you know. Receive all incoming information, redistribute this information, stand in your own truth, and you're living in unconditional love. That's what we're doing here. Where rest comes into this is at some point in time, all of the doing this has to be saved, if you will, to a hard drive. So, I mentioned earlier that a prime spiritual practice that you learn in a place like this is spiritual mind treatment. Okay? Affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer, which we're going to deal with more in detail in the coming weeks, but affirmative prayer has 5 steps to it. And the 5th of these is release. I haven't run across a lot of other forms of prayer that incorporate release. There's like form, amen. You know, it's like amen is just kind of the period at the end of the sentence. It doesn't get a whole lot of respect on its own. But in the process of spiritual mind treatment as we teach it, release is a potent step. Why? It gets it out of the squirrel cage up here where you've been thinking about it, hoping for it, this, that, you know, rationalizing it. Working on logic, there's one life, that life is spirit, therefore if there's one life, I mean, it's all logical, that life, if there's one, must be mine, right? Because if it's not mine, there are 2. And if it's not yours, there are 3, and if it's not all the rest of us, there's 8 billion. Well, there's one life, therefore that life is my life, therefore the attributes of that life, the capacities of that life are mine as well, at least nascently, if not fully orbed, you know. And I live in this, and then my goals. Then I realize what it is I'd like to create. And do I have my goals? I sure do. I go into my pocket and I pull out my goal list, page after page after, like a little kid. And then I want a pony, and I want a sled, and I want this, and I want that, right? Well, that's part of treatment too. We're entitled. We claim. Then there's gratitude. There's gratitude because, yay, I get everything on my list. You know, I brought my list to the party, and there's one life, and that life's all the life there is. And so it says, sure, so I feel wonderful about all of this. But the 5th step is just as critical as the first 4. And it's now be still. Let it go. Save it to the principle by which things occur. Because if through our best thinking, if through our most energized activity, we could have made the stuff on the list appear, it would have already. So we're sending this into a field that unites all life everywhere, over which we have no control, that we can't even perceive. We just sort of imagine it and feel it to be so, because everything in our lives that's appeared so far has come out of it. Like, okay, where were you before I met you? Well, you were somewhere else. Well, what brought you here to this door? Well, some journey, some path, some patterning intelligence that within you claimed a certain thing, and within me claimed a certain thing. And the same is not just true of, you know, a spiritual center, an overtly spiritual center, but it's as true about the people you pull up next to at the gas pump up the street at that particular time. If you exchange a pleasantry with them or just even notice them, it's like something caused y'all to cross paths at this particular time or some particular time. So that's the thing that we trust, is that process, is that principle, which is why I say it's okay to rest and let your word go, and let your word go, and let it just gestate. There's a million more examples I could give you, but I think you've had enough for one morning, you know? In the spring, we use the garden and how the seeds grow and all that. It's all, why? Why? Well, nature is telling us these lessons. Nature, everything we need to know about our own interior process is taught to us by nature if we but listen. And the great spiritual teachers that you read or hear, I'm not ranking them or anything, but the first name that jumps to mind when I say that is Emerson. Emerson's like, oh, the greatest spiritual teacher. You know, he's really good. But all he did, and he'd tell you this, is observe nature and write down what he saw. And say, so this means this to you and me, you know. So we learn these lessons from nature, and nature rests. Nature pauses. Nature takes a break every now and then. Do that. Do that. If you got to do something, read a book. If you got to do something, listen to some really nice music. And may I suggest you listen to music without words. Listen to jazz. Jazz is great. Go for jazz. Go for some Miles Davis, man. Listen to some, or Stanley Cowell. Look up Stanley Cowell. I always come back to Stanley Cowell. But listen to jazz, because jazz is not syncopated. It's not in a particular, it changes keys, it changes time signatures. And so it's not about controlling it. It's not verse, chorus, verse, chorus, chorus, verse. You know, it's wild and it's unpredictable, and your imagination can take flight and go where it goes. As long as you get some rest. Because, finally this, there's a lot to do. There is a lot to do. There's a lot to pray about. There's a lot to meditate on. There is so much compassionate action to undertake in the world today to try to support our fellow humans and being who they are. There is so much creativity needed, ingenuity needed, discovery and invention calling. You have passions that probably terrify you to bring forward something because it means everything, and how will it be received? Well, you want to be rested and ready. You want to be rested and ready for the second half of this year and all that lies beyond it and all that is yet to come. So I wish you, I know for you, just a beautiful holiday tomorrow and a deep sense of peace filling you from head to toe. Let's know together now there is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit. Everywhere radiant, everywhere ready. Behind the scenes, something is happening. Nature is doing what needs to be done to support each one of us. And so we are able to relax and let go, able to release the big dreams of our hearts into an immediate receptive spiritual law that knows what to do with them. And just as we're able to rest, we're able to wait. Able to wait. As the poet says, serenely I fold my hands and wait. My good shall come unto me. We are made in peace. We're created to mirror the infinite in our own local microcosmic way. And so the beautiful poetic idea that God rested on the seventh day is all the permission we might need to do likewise and let things settle and let our energy restore itself. Let us refuel. And as I have this knowing, I think of Ernest Holmes' words about this nation and its unity and its diversity. And I'm grateful for the ideal of America and all the promise that it holds for each one of us. For such a time as this have we come. For this knowing, for this sweet 4th of July time, a sweet Sunday together with spiritual family. I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is.
I'll move back a little bit. Thank you guys, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Jesse was talking about jazz, and he knows this is like one of my favorite conversations. So with that, I just also would like to recommend John Coltrane, The Love Supreme. If you do not know John Coltrane, you need to know who John Coltrane is for your spiritual soul. I'm just saying. But now we come to giving time. And as our usher makes her way to the back, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Thank you, Jesse, for your message. That was beautiful. And I know I, for one, after some stuff, will be resting. So I appreciate that. And I hope you all will be too. Your energy is valuable and important to us. Your love means everything to us. Your financial donations, we're deeply grateful for. Thank you for all the support that you give to this center in all the ways that you do. And with that, I invite you now to say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
So that is the three things. So look at me, I got it. Yay! Okay. Every now and again, because I meant to mention the lessons with Marsha last week, and I was distracted by our cute ushers. Okay, now I get to turn you loose. But before I do that, I am going to remind you that nature does put in rest periods. And summer is a rest period. We go through this flurry of planting in the spring. So we have to prepare the ground and plant everything and weed everything and make sure that the plants are coming. But by the time we hit kind of that midsummer, everything's pretty well established, and our responsibilities become watching and waiting. Getting ready for all of the activity that we will be doing in the fall. So summer is kind of a rest period. I won't mention that's also when kids are out at school, so you may not be getting a break, but you have kids. That is, in that summer heat, it's a good time to take a rest. Take a 3-hour nap on a Saturday. It felt really good, and I feel a whole lot better today. Rest is a spiritual practice. It is very important. So, in that note, let's know together that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. This is an inexhaustible power and an inexhaustible presence. It doesn't need a rest, but we do. And so we are allowed to rest in that power. We are allowed to rest in that love. We are allowed to rest in that presence, in that life. And so I know that though we may not get much rest this weekend, you live in a neighborhood like mine, we're going to enjoy each other's company. We are going to enjoy each other's fireworks. We are going to enjoy being together. We are going to enjoy our community, this community here, our neighborhood community, our country community, our world community, our universe community. Because that's what the 4th of July is about pulling together as a community. So while you rest, and rest in each other's presence, know that it is good. Know that it is God, and know that it is so. And I am grateful for these rest periods that are built in. And I am grateful for this place that reminds me that rest is a good thing. And I am grateful for this teaching. I am grateful for our ministers. I am grateful for our musicians. I'm grateful for Neil Diamond and James Brown. I am grateful for Stephen Foster. And I am grateful for each and every one of you, for the bright and brilliant lights that you are, and for the fireworks in your souls. And so I rest, I relax, and I release into spirit, into law, knowing that we are. And so it is.
Peace eternally, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose
I
it.
trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
And
it.
I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
And so it is.
Right.